Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to this fantastic venue for us on board the Waterkloof Wine Farm, for us to launch two truly iconic vehicles, the Audi Q7 and the Audi Q8. Before I introduce you to the head of Audi South Africa, Sasha Sauer, I just want to run through a couple of housekeeping elements. The smoking's out front, bathrooms there in the back, in the corner. We've got the full range for you to experience today and tomorrow, all the way from Q755 TFSI up to an RSQ8 Performance. Due to the driving rotations, you won't naturally maybe be able to experience all the cars. Come to me if there's something specific you want to have a drive in, and we can always make a plan. I'm guessing everyone will clamour for the RSQ8 Performance, and you should. It's incredible. And on that, I would like to kick off today's formal proceedings, video, and then Sasha will come forward. Thank you.
Who we are is where we come from, and where we are going. Intelligence, that's playful, a thrill. Speed, adrenaline, on or off-road, beauty that makes us smile, a surge of emotion, bold and peaceful, unstoppable, unlimited, intensity, even in a cloud of dust. That just ran down your spine. This is you. This is us. This is Audi.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Dear colleagues, media colleagues, friends and fans of the brand. This stunning location here called us on top of the hill in the Somerset area. I hope you have a nice, pleasant first journey already in the Q7 and Q8, SQ7, SQ8, and some of you also in the RSQ8. Before I run you through a little bit of an update from the Audi side, I thought it was important to share a little bit of a strategy update and reflect a little bit on the current situation of the market, the South African market in particular. Some of you may have noticed that this morning the global information went out from Volkswagen Group on the financial results last year. And as expected, I must say, they don't look really pretty. I think profits are down by 50%, whereas revenues are actually up. And profits are down by only a little bit, almost 15%, which is quite sad to say in that way. But there are competitors in Germany, large, big competitors, operating mainly in the luxury premium segment. Their profits reported recently is down by 28% versus the previous year. So I think that tells you something about the pressure in the industry, the pressure in the markets, the global markets, not only South Africa, and the tremendous changes it brings with it to our business overall. Yeah, but let's get started. I wanted to first introduce you to the management team, because some of you we haven't seen in a long while since we last launched the Q2 and the RS3 in Smart Box, of course. Some of you were there. That was our last engagement with you. And since then, the management team from Audi has changed somewhat. You may have seen Ashley earlier. Some of you are even new to Ashley. Ashley is our new head of sales, after sales and then development. She joined us about a year ago, 1st of February last year, so a little bit more than a year now. So she is still a little bit on the block, I would say. But the very last addition to the team is Richie Gertrude, and I would like to welcome Richie officially and introduce you to Richie Gertrude as the head of sales after marketing, PR, and products, so everything. So he is basically taken over from Darren, who decided to join another manufacturer whose name I've forgotten now. Which is with us also Chris of that officially, yeah? Yeah, so 1 year later, exactly 1 year later. So, Asif, you're well aware of Asif, and meanwhile, I think many of you, not all of you, probably are familiar with me. I'm Sasha, I'm the head of the brand here in South Africa, and I've been with the brand now since October 2020, so it's been quite a while, and we've been through quite something in the meantime. This is the introduction to the topic, premium market pressures. And I think I'm just repeating things which you're all quite aware of, quite familiar with, that's why I'm going to run through rather quickly. I think the pressure in the South African market is a reality. The Chinese brands are not coming into the market, they're here, they have arrived, and I guess they're here to stay. So I think that's a reality, and we have to cope with that, even in the premium space, because the cars they're bringing in are quite attractively priced, and I think that falls on fertile soil, so to speak, if you combine it with general affordability pressures in the market. Interest rates are high, we all know that. Since I have arrived, I still remember fuel prices of around 15 rand a liter. That was 4 years back. 15 rand a liter, now it's 23, 24, 25. So I can see it, I can feel it. I see it with my electricity bill at home, with the water bill, with commodities, everything. So I think the pressures are manifold. Interest rates are high. They have come down somewhat now recently, but they're still on high level and they're going to remain on high level. And for us as Audi South Africa, particularly also the exchange rate plays a major role, obviously, because we're importing all our cars. And over the years, the exchange rate has gone, unfortunately, in one direction, which is, let's say, on the graph, typically on the top right corner, which is the weaker rand, which typically makes the importing cars more expensive for us or less profitable. So that is the reality in the market. The Chinese, the influx of main Chinese brands and new products, putting pressure even on our segment and on our business. But I would like to say that this is obviously not something which has developed or evolved overnight. I mean, we've been observing that now for a couple of years. When I started here in South Africa, the first Chinese brands had just arrived. Audi was one of them, for example. And they started off with a combined market share across the Chinese brands probably in the first years of 1-3%. And now reached last year, I guess it's probably close to 20%. The combined market share for the Chinese brands that we ever came in. That's quite an achievement. So things have evolved over a period of time. We could observe that. And we have to, of course, react and respond to that. And we have taken some corrective measures and initiatives already. Needless to say that we have to adjust to reality, but not all reacting likewise in the same moment. Be very careful and mindful of what we're doing. And I would like to first of all point out the fact that we have taken some corrective measures already. One example is for example, the expansion, the Audi freeway expansion, which is now up to 15 years and 300,000 kilometers. So always with the customer in mind, we're trying to figure out, okay, how can we still find a way to serve the customers in South Africa in a proper way, in an honest way, in a committed way, and in a meaningful way. What really is the concern of the consumer in South Africa, and not just trying to implement something from Germany or so. So the reality, unfortunately, will force us to adjust our strategy also in terms of the footprint of our network and the representation. We've got dealers who struggle in their local areas in terms of running a profitable, viable business and serving the customer with the right quality and the right customer experience. So that will mean that going forward, we will have to unfortunately close the one-level leadership. But we want to do this in a way proactively, in a managed way, and in a way where we communicate with the consumers and the customers and will basically inform them about the alternatives. We always want to keep an eye on service availability in the, let's say, immediate area for those customers concerned, because we're aware that we're so far have a consideration of that, and we always have a solution for that. But just to address the elephant in the room up front, because I don't want to read in the newspaper something like from one of our Swedish competitors recently, where they went along and just, tried to put something in place with the dealers, which was not aligned with the dealers. So we are in close contact with the dealers. We are in a very intense and in detail exchange with our investors, with our dealers, to say, okay, what is a workable solution, a brand-related solution which works for the investor, which is also working for us, and which is going to serve customers still in the area. So I thought this was important to address the situation, and I must say that the situation we're finding ourselves in, we cannot only blame the Chinese, to be honest. Too simplistic, I guess. I think it's simply the industry. Times are changing. It's the macroeconomic environment. It's South Africa, if you like. It's basically also the legal framework or the policy framework. I must say I'm a little bit disillusioned meanwhile, because I always kept a positive attitude and was always optimistic about South Africa, its outlook, its attitude, EV policy, support for EV cars, etc., will come. I always emphasize that. But now I'm here for almost 4.5 years. Nothing has changed. Not a tiny bit. I'm rather frustrated and rather disappointed about that. I hear Ramaphosa every time on an Indaba, he makes big statements, big announcements, which sound nice. Everyone leaves with a good warm feeling, and then turn around and nothing happens. And nothing ever happened so far. So I'm a little bit frustrated about that personally, to be honest, and I must say that probably adds to the whole situation in South Africa, which is not necessarily beneficial for a premium motoring business. So that's probably also one of the influential factors. But as I said, whatever we do, we're gonna basically always keep the customers in our focus and try to make any change only from the customer first perspective, to say, okay, where are the customers today? Where are they residing? Where are they servicing? What are the alternatives? What is the distance? What is the drive time? Is it reasonable to assume that the customer will go there, will pick it up? Or maybe we must think in some instances even about pick-up, drop-off services and these kind of things. But we'll find a solution, and if there's one thing I learned in the 4.5 years here in South Africa, then it's we'll make a plan. And I think South Africans are very resilient and good at making plans. So that's something I think I picked up. We will always make a plan. I think I will see that. Yeah, on a little bit more positive note, so to speak, is the future and the outlook for the next coming months only, and that is quite a bit of a more offensive already in itself. If you look at that, you see a couple of advanced style cars, and I would probably also like to pick your brain a little bit to see what you think about these advanced type cars in the South African market. Has the market matured, looking at all the available models now in the market, looking at all these Chinese brands who entered the market with different concepts, different designs? Would you think that the market is more mature to absorb, to accept, probably even welcome advanced type cars, or do you think it's still a niche, it's a tiny niche, and no one is going to like these cars? Because we are thinking about introducing an S5 Audi, for example. We're thinking of an oil again in the future. We're thinking of, I'm not sure if you saw that picture before when I opened my slide. Actually, let me go back quickly and ask you that question. So, yeah, this one. Does anyone know quickly what car is that? Any guess? No one? A6. Not bad, close. It's an A6 e-tron Avant. You don't really see the angle is a bit difficult, that's why before I let's make a quick question. It's an A6 e-tron. So we even toying with the idea, okay, once we bring in an electric car on the set, should we not come as an Avant? This type of car, this exact same car on the photo here, instead of a rather traditional sedan type style. So that's why I would like to probably engage with you a little bit over lunch or even for dinner later on informally to say what's your opinion, what's your personal estimate, what's your personal preference about these type of cars versus the classical sedan, so to speak. Do you think it works or doesn't work? So, but our new model offensive for the next couple of months is quite impressive in itself. We have just launched the A3, I'm sure you're aware of that, but the new facelift A3. A3 sedan, A3 Sportback, RS3 will be launched now and released next month in April, I think, I see for this, to the dealers. RS3 sedan Sportback, then we will have the S3 around July, August. We're going to launch the A5 this side of the year, probably fourth quarter. Q6 e-tron later in the year, fourth quarter. So there's a lot of things coming. S5 I mentioned that. And we will see next year, early next year, the order anticipated in the Q3 and Q5, the new car. We've seen both of them, Q3 and Q5, the entire management team in Germany. And I can tell you this car will be stunning. In terms of the design. We're really great. So this is the outlook for the next coming months with regards to new models. And you see there's a lot of commitment also in the business here, looking at all these new launches on new product introductions. You will be part of that, I'm sure, because we're going to drive these cars, we're going to present these cars, and we look forward to run this year in terms of new model launches. With that being said, I would like to hand over to Asif to take you through some more numbers. Nice words, but also a few numbers and facts and figures. Thank you very much.
So, good afternoon everybody. Good to see you again. I think it's been a while since we've seen one another and actually spoken to one another, so there's some new faces here as well, so I look forward to engaging with you a bit later on over lunch. I do have some numbers, but I actually only have 2 slides, so it's not going to get too intense with numbers and too boring. But my purpose is to rather give you an update on the premium market and to build on what Sasha had spoken about in terms of the pressures on the premium market and the affordability issues, etc. So I think a good place to start on the back of that is looking at what the premium market is at the bottom of your chart as a percentage of the total market. So you see in 2019, pre-COVID, the total market was 355,000 units, total passenger car market. And premium as a percentage of that was 13.2%. So it was a market of about 47,000 cars. Now we've reached the 350,000 again in 2024. But premium as a percentage of the total market is last year was 8.7%. So an absolute volume of 31,000 cars. So down from 47,000 to 31,000 over that 6-year period. So we can see that structurally something has changed in the market. And that's got to do with, of course, the influx of more competitors, the segments have become highly fragmented as well. There's so many new product offerings, and that of course has led to a bit of a buy-down trend in the market. So premium as a percentage of total, you see at the bottom, it's gone from 13 to 12 to 10 to 9, and last year ended up at 8.7. So our outlook for the coming years is that the premium market is going to be somewhere between 9 to 10% of the total market. We don't see the premium market again becoming too significant in South Africa because of the affordability issues, the influx of competitors, the buy-down trends that we see. We think that will continue. The good thing about the last couple of years for us is the market share line at the top of this chart. You see we've been able to maintain a consistent market share despite the pressures at about 18%. Last year, incidentally, we finished as number 2 in the market. That has never happened before. So even under difficult market circumstances, we're able to gain a bit of ranking in the market whilst maintaining our market share. Now the other interesting point around that would be our product portfolio, which of course has been aging over the last couple of years, and we're probably at the worst point in our product life cycle. And now with the introduction of the A3PI and then RS3 and RSQ8 and A5, etc., our product life cycle gets renewed, as Sasha was talking about in the remodel offensive. So although the market has declined, and this red portion of the chart shows you the dealer portion of that market. So you can see that the dealer channel in particular with private consumers is under a lot of pressure. And it's now around 25,000 cars per year, whereas pre-COVID it was sitting close to 40,000 cars per year. I realize that my mic's going in and out of it, but I hope you can still hear me. So we're encouraged by the fact that we've got a new product portfolio coming. So a new product, of course, would help us capture the volume and share. And there are still somewhere between 30 to 35,000 premium cars being sold in the South African market. Despite all the pressures that we know about, that still is pretty sizable. And if you think of a 20% share of the 35,000 car market, that's 7,000 cars a year. That still represents a significant opportunity for ourselves. So leading on from that into the reason we are here today with Q7 and Q8 being launched, or the PIs being launched, it brings up the question of the opportunity in that segment of the market. So on the left-hand side of your chart, you'll see how we define the segments as A0, A, B, C, D. In the A0 segment from an SUV perspective, that's where the Audi Q2 competes. In the A SUV segment, that's Q3, B SUV Q5, so Q3 SUV and Sportback, Q5 SUV and Sportback, C SUV is Q7, Q8, and we currently don't have representation in the D segment of the market with SUV. So I wanted just to explain that because I realize that you may classify the segmentation a little bit differently to us. So that'll put into perspective where the Audi brands compete. But when you look at this chart, you see that SUV, which is the red part of these bars, is over 50% of the segments that body style competes in. So A0 lower down from a price point of view, it's over 50%. In the A segment, it becomes over 60%. B segment is 2/3. C segment, it's particularly high. 85% of the C segment is SUV. And in the D segment, it's over 60% as well. So, on average, in the premium market, SUV body style represents 2/3 of the market. So some of these are over-indexing versus that average, and that being probably B, C, and D is almost there as well. So these now are all the higher price bands. So with regard to Q7 PI and Q8 PI, and SQ7 and SQ8, that represents significant opportunity for us, despite all the market pressures we've been discussing in Sasha's presentation. If you look at the top right-hand side of that chart, that just shows you the segmentation of the SUV market and what the makeup is. So the light gray portion is the A SUV, the slightly darker gray is the B SUV, and then you can see as it goes towards the top of the chart, C SUV, D SUV, and A0 SUV. But by far, the biggest part of the market sits in the A and B segments, and then you've got C, D, and A0 at the top. But that small percentage of the market in C and D represents a fair bit of volume. And in those segments, we believe that the Q7 and Q8, SQ7, SQ8, RSQ8 can really do a job for us in gaining more volume and segment share. The bottom right-hand side, it's just a sales comparison for 2023 versus 2024, and we are lagging behind the main comparator number one, but we are ahead of everybody else. And last year we had some limitations in terms of supply on Audi Q5. Arguably we could have touched 4,000 cars from an Audi sales point of view, and some of our competitors would have probably adjusted backwards as well. So we aren't doing too badly in the SUV part of the market, but this gives us an opportunity to just speed up, gives us a boost, and it allows us to capture some incremental volume in sales. So I hope that was really quick, but I hope it provides you with a bit of perspective as to how we view the market and where we see the segment opportunity and potential. So that was a quick run through markets and segments. If there are any questions that you have, we can of course pick them up over lunch or as we see one another over the next couple of hours and later this evening. But for now, I would like to hand over to Sam and to Neil, who are going to take you through the product in a bit more detail. So thank you for your attention, and I look forward to engaging with you guys a bit later.
Progress is an all-wheel drive converting power into pleasure. Space to create ideas and carry them through. Technology that helps the future to see you coming. And beauty defined by your heart beat's pace. The Audi Q-Models.
A very warm welcome from my side, and some familiar faces that I've known over the years, but for those of you I haven't met, look forward to engaging with you later or during the course of your time with us. I am Samira Morgan, responsible for product and pricing for Audi South Africa, and joined Daniel Reuter, product and training specialist for Audi South Africa. And I think between us we have the great pleasure of introducing a fantastic range of 5 new models, not just 1 but 5 new models into our Audi range. I haven't managed to pick those as yet, Neil. Have you?
Definitely. I think it's SP7. SP7 is just a great combination of performance and practicality. It's just the right balance, I think. So awesome car. And it's got that new petrol V8, so a really awesome engine. As you will experience. Some of you will experience today.
Yeah. So we'll touch on each of these in a bit more detail as we go along the presentation, but as Terence mentioned, you will have an opportunity hopefully to drive each of these over your course of the day with us, the next 2 days with us. Alright, moving on to the Q7. So this was in fact the first Audi SUV that was launched by the Audi brand back in 2006, so almost 20 years ago. It was the debut of Audi's strategy to expand its product portfolio into a larger, more practical, versatile type car. It offered quattro all-wheel drive and a spacious cabin, all of these hallmarks which the model today still retains. So between 2006 and the end of last year, the Q7 has managed to find just over 7,000 homes in the South African market. So 7 and 7. But yeah, it happened just as the consumer shift was happening towards the SUV body style, which we can see is quite prevalent in the market today. In terms of this model, so this is now the 2nd generation of the Q7. It's actually getting its 2nd refreshment or 2nd facelift in this generation. It's got a redesigned exterior with quite a few substantial design tweaks, which we'll touch on in a little bit. Digital lighting available for the first time with OLED rear lights as well, and completely customizable. You can shoot between 4 different light signatures. It's now available as a standard with 7 seats, so making it a lot more family friendly. You'll notice the new badging, the 2D rings as well, which will roll out to all Audi models going forward. And the last thing is also just a simplified customer offering. So we've designed 2 specific trim lines with the South African consumer specifically in mind, which we'll take you through as well. Let's look at the exterior design.
Yeah, so when it comes to the design, there have been some subtle updates, mostly focused on the front and the rear of the car, and of course the lighting, which we'll talk about in a second. If you look at the single frame grille, that's coming for a redesign, and a lot of giving the car, I think, a little bit more road presence, to make it look a bit more sporty. And then, of course, we see the 2D rings. That's how we corporate identity, the new Audi rings. We've got the naming on the two pillars now, that's standard across the range of all Audis. And then if you look at the side view, we've also got some new colors that we introduced, two of which are behind me actually. We've got Starry Blue as well as Sakura Gold, and then also some wheel designs. Then the single frame wheel, as I mentioned, has been redesigned, incorporating this L-shaped element, which we've seen before in the A8, and then as I've come down from B7 to CSUV segment, and as I mentioned about the new rings that we see on the Audis. Then we want to provide value without talking about the lights, of course, and the lighting design is being enhanced with the new Q7 and Q8. HD matrix with the laser lights, which can shine up to 600 meters. And then also, as Sam mentioned, we've got the ability to change the daytime running lights, which is 4 different ones. So if you get bored of the design, you can change the design, which is really easy to do in any environment. The car looks wider from the daytime, a little bit more aggressive. And the good news for performance enthusiasts is that we've got hot tailpipes, as our German colleagues call it. So real tailpipes, it's not just fake shit, so as real as it is. So I think overall, a great update to the look of the Q7. The next thing to talk about is the engine, of course. We see this 55 TFSI, it's a petrol engine, a 3-litre petrol V6, 250 kilowatts, 500 newton meters. I've been lucky enough to drive quite a lot of great engine, really suits the character of the car. And then it's got the mild hybrid technology as well. The mild hybrid technology is not there for propulsion, but it works in the sense that there's a separate battery, which is a lithium-ion battery, and what happens is it's all about efficiency. So those petrol engines are still very efficient petrol engine. When you're driving and coasting on the highway at speeds of between 55 and 160 kilometers an hour, the engine lets the shoot off completely and just coasting. And it uses this lithium-ion battery to discharge and power all the auxiliaries in the car. So it's two electrical systems. And then as soon as you touch the accelerator, of course, then it turns on the engine again with the belt alternator starter. So it's really seamless and really smooth. The only reason why you'll notice the car is not running, the engine is not running, is because the rear counter is dropped to 0 completely. So really perceptible, and of course, adding efficiency of this engine.
Right, moving on to the specifications. So locally there'll be 2 trim lines offered on all models represented today. So on Q7 there's a platinum and black edition. And all this really is it gives customers a very easy, simple way to select their Q7 based on their preference. So whether it's chrome detailing or black detailing, both models have a very high specification. For platinum edition, you can see a 21-inch wheel, S-line interior and exterior body kit and interior package, panoramic sunroof, a tow bar, adaptive air suspension, matrix LED headlights, and like I mentioned, 7 seats just to add some family friendliness. So the price on the platinum edition for Q7 is $1,958, and this includes the standard 5-year 100,000 Audi freeway plan, also available to extend up to 300,000 kilometers. So the black edition, just the addition of the black styling, 22-inch wheel as well, just adds to the more aggressive exterior appearance of the Q7. This one is priced at $1,987,900. And then on to the versatility.
Yeah, I mean, Q7 has always been versatile, that's what I love about it. And South Africans love their 7-seaters, so good news is that now we have 7 seats as standard on the Q7. So even though Q7 and Q8 are built on the same platform, I think the execution of the two cars are completely different because of the body style. But Q7 is also a new advancement of the interior. Is the MMI now offers something called the App Store, which you can download third-party apps. So things like YouTube and Spotify, you can actually download on the MMI. Of course, S-Line also now is also standard across the range. So adding that sport touch, and then usually because of the versatility of the sense, you can fall down and really reduce the boot space significantly. And then it's also electrically operated and enforced completely flat, which really makes the car very, very useful. And I should maybe just mention at this stage as well that it's got a towing capacity of 3.5 tons, and that is across the range from Q7, Q8, SQ7, SQ8, as well as the RS28. RS28 also 3.5 tons. In terms of body length, the only difference is really from the seat pillar onwards. So the boot space on the QA is slightly smaller, and the length, overall length of the QA is down by about 7 centimeters, so Q7 being 7 centimeters longer. That's really the only but I think in the side profile execution there are something to do, as well as the bigger sliding for the data the QA.
Right, moving on to Q8. So this was a bit more of a recent introduction to the Audi stable. The Q8 was launched to much acclaim, I think back in 2019. Lauded for its beautiful design, and that's something that's really carried on through Audi models going forward. So we launched the Q8 as well in 2019, and since then it's sold just over 900 vehicles in South Africa. It now gets a facelift in its first generation. Once again, revised exterior styling, still keeps its sort of balanced and effortless handling. New digital lighting technology, the same as the Q7. For this one, it's available in a TSI and TDI launch, and once again, the two editions, ultra lines that are available for customers to choose from.
Right. So obviously, starting again updates on the QA, but again, supple starting updates to both front and rear. And there's a really nice animation that we'll see shortly as to how the front of the car is being enhanced. Of course, the QA is significantly different from the Q7 because of this mask. We call it a mask, but that is surrounding the single frame door. And again, the body style being a coupe, looking more sporty and suited for a different type of customer that the Q7 would choose. But you can see very nicely how the design has changed from the current QA down to the face of the vehicle with the eyes. More sporty, those arrow-shaped intakes in the front, giving it a more sporty stance as well. Again, the light design has been enhanced and changed. Again, finishing HD matrix with the option of laser on some of the models and some of the standard. And as I said, the laser lights are shining from 600 meters away. Really incredible technology that is available on the car. And also new colors, as I mentioned, as well as some new wheel designs. And then you can on the color, so standard. And then the digital OLED lights, as I mentioned, also changeable from the light. And then the light bar is also what distinguishes the Q7 from the Q8. The Q7, that light bar across there, as well as the real tailpipes, box tailpipes, that I mentioned before. So overall, even for a more sporty character. And if you guys remember that Audi got from the 1980s, so they had the same light bar across the back, so it's kind of just thinking back to how I do it. Right, we've got engine range, we've got two engine options, the 55 TFSI. Again, a familiar engine, we've seen this before in the incarnation of the SP5, for instance. Although here it's got 250 kilowatts, there it's 260 kilowatts, but it's an engine that we are familiar with. Remember, it does have a hybrid technology. And then I'm very, very familiar with the diesel engine, the 45 TDI with 903 kilowatts and 600 Newton meters. And these are those engine options you have a 2.5 ton capacity.
Okay, onto the details of the Q8 Platinum Edition. So here we get a 22-inch wheel. Once again, all of the standard spec remains as the Q7. In terms of pricing, the TDI starts at 196,700 and the TFSI from just over 2.0154. Black Edition, once again, and 22-inch black metallic wheel in this one, adding to that sort of aggressive stance that the Q8 has. TDI priced at 201,700 and TFSI at 205,800.
So as the Q7, the Q8 has been slightly enhanced in the interior. And if you're sitting in a Q7 or a Q8, you're not really going to be able to tell the difference whether you're sitting in the front or the back, because the interior is all almost identical. It's really only the space that is slightly different. But obviously, we pay that shape. We do it on the side, very sporty with the vehicle. And as I mentioned, the interior there, MI as well, has got the updates on the App Store, so you can download third-party apps as well to make the experience inside the car a little bit more fun. Of course, you can look at wireless charging and USB-C ports, all those are included in the package as well. Okay, interior is very, very similar. Boot space 600 move back and forth by 10 centimeters, and can also recline to make the seat for the rear passenger a little more comfortable as well, and increasing the boot space as well. That's a possibility. And then if you have the option of the air suspension, and if you are slightly horizontally challenged, you can actually have the car lower. So press the button, the car lowers itself down to 6.5 centimeters, and make it a little easier to access the air. Or if you're looking up the trailer, that's also a useful feature, which is lower the back of the car. And then of course, what you buy with the lever itself, so it's going to be concerned about pressing the buttons.
Right, moving on to the very prolific S model. So this officially marks the launch of the first petrol-powered SQ7 and SQ8 in South Africa. So some of you might remember the first SQ7 and SQ8 was launched in 2021. However, it had a V8 TDI engine, which produced 310 kilowatts. All in all, between SQ7 and SQ8 of that generation, only about 100 were sold in South Africa. So if you manage to find one of those in a garage somewhere, that person can consider themselves quite lucky. This car has 373 kilowatts, 770 meters of torque, adaptive air suspension and all-wheel steering are actually standard as well. And once again, two specification levels which are available.
Yeah, so a 40 to V8 engine is well on the RS models as well, also the S8. 40 twin turbo V8, it's a hot V, so the turbo is on the inside for packaging purposes. But you would think that it's a V8 engine, it's going to be possibly a little bit not as efficient, but we've got some great technology to make it as efficient as possible. Something we call cylinder on command. With the engine, you can actually switch off the cylinders. As you see this animation now, that's running on all 8 cylinders. But then if you're driving on fast travel or just cruising on the highway, you really need all 8 cylinders to be pushing you along. Definitely not. And then of course, actually turn off 4 of those 8 cylinders. So effectively becoming a 2-liter V4. So how it works, as you'll see from animation just now, on the camshaft, it's got an actuator. And what the actuator does, as it pushes down on the camshaft itself, it slides the cam load over so that there's no opening valves. So if you look at the cylinder on the left-hand side, as it slides over, the valves don't open anymore, and you also turn off the spark to that particular cylinder as well as the fuel. So that piston that's moving up and down basically becomes an air pump. So there's no pumping loss as well, so the car becomes a lot more efficient. And it's imperceptible to the driver. The only way you notice is if you see it on the DI, so we say 4-cylinder mode, and of course it's going to be across the fuse in the pocket, it's going to save some money. But as soon as you touch the accelerator, the car will go back to 8-cylinder mode. So great to see that it's a performance engine, but it's also extremely efficient. The exhaust system on the S-Cars also like has a dual flap system. So if you just starting the car in the morning, you want to cruise out of your driveway and wake up the neighbors, or maybe you're riding home late at night and you just want to cruise along and not make too much noise, because it is a V8, it does sound great. I'm sure you can attest to that. It's got a quiet mode, if you can get yourself to not get the revs over 1,500 RPM. But then as soon as you put your foot down and it goes over that, and both flaps open up, and you get a beautiful sounding V8 engine as well. You'll notice the design is quite an exhaust design, and that is the characteristic of all our S models. All our S models have 4 exhaust pipes, whereas the RS models you'll see later has got the 2 dual pipes, which is the design.
Right, so the same philosophy here, allowing customers to kind of easily choose the sort of styling elements that they fancy. Well appointed in terms of standard equipment with equipment ranging from 22-inch wheels, HD matrix with Audi base lights, which Neil touched on, all steering, power latching doors, all seats plus. And for the Black Edition, at 44,000 rand worth of that package, getting the black elements as well. In terms of SQ8, the pricing on these, so actually the spec, we have a maximum of 23-inch wheels available on the SQ8, which these have. And the pricing for the normal one, 2.640, and Black Edition at 2.675.
Right, as Sam mentioned, 23-inch wheels standard. And you think 23-inch wheels, what comes with big wheels is generally an uncomfortable ride. But we thought about that as well. And of course, with the air suspension, it gives you a really, really smooth ride. The other benefit of the air suspension is, of course, you can raise and lower the ride up by pressing a button. But it makes it extremely comfortable, as you would experience yourself. You kind of have to get out of the car and look and see what size of wheel this is, because it can't be a 23-inch wheel. It's normally not as comfortable for that. Some other technology that we have is something called EAWS. It's a German acronym. The W, I'll leave up to Sasha to explain that to you later. I can't pronounce it myself. But basically what it is electromechanical roll stabilization. So normally a car would have an anti-roll bar, and the stiffer the anti-roll bar, the less body roll, and the softer the anti-roll bar, the more body roll. So the idea is you want to have the best of both worlds, and we certainly have that. So by the press of the button, we can actually make the anti-roll bar either stiffer or less stiff. And it works with a supercapacitor that can release the energy very, very quickly and charge very, very quickly to make that happen instantaneously off the drive. So there's no delay there. The car really does what you want it to do. So as the animation shows, I'm turning into a corner. So instead of having body roll, in dynamic mode, the anti-roll bar is going to be a lot stiffer and prevent that body roll. So we'll probably have more like a sporty car as it should. But then we want to be comfortable as well. We go to comfort mode, and the car's got more body roll, make it more comfortable. And it's a purely electrical system. It's not hydraulic, it's an electrical system that works with supercapacitor. The sports differential that you see the animation is how we turn into a corner. Sports differential is like steering the car from the rear. So you can send up to 2 quarters of the power to either the left or the right rear wheel. If you turn into the right hand corner, you can have more power going to the left rear wheel to help the car turn into a corner. And then of course we've got the all-wheel steering. All-wheel steering makes the car a lot more agile at highway speed, so we can change lanes, the front wheels and the rear wheels. You turn the front wheels to the left, the rear wheels turn with you at higher speeds on the highway. But the benefit that I really like about this is if you're in a parking lot at slow speed, if you're turning the front wheels to the left, the rear wheels turn to the right. So that what it does is it virtually shortens the turning circle. And on a Q7 or a Q8, you know, so they've got the same wheelbase, so you think that it's going to be a big part to turn. But it reduces the turning circle to something similar to an Audi A4 actually. So a small compact sedan in a sense. And it makes the car a lot more maneuverable and easy to drive in tight spots.
Right, now ending up with the pinnacle of the range, and actually the pinnacle of the entire range. This is the most powerful Audi combustion engine that we have currently, and actually the most powerful Audi sport model ever produced. A fire-breathing RS2.
Yeah, so I'm sure you're all familiar with the Nürburgring. If you're not familiar with the Nürburgring, just check it out on Google. It's a place we use extensively. We test all our RS models there. Minimum of 8,000 kilometers of testing will happen there at racing speed. And then while we're testing, we might as well get the stopwatch out and see how we're comparing with our competitors. And yeah, the car achieved an amazing lap time. It set a new record actually around the Nürburgring. Nürburgring is 21 kilometers. It's got 73 corners. It is the most challenging ribbon of tarmac in the world. It is the pinnacle of driving. And yeah, for a big SUV to be going around so quickly takes a lot of engineering, takes a lot of skill as well. And yeah, we actually had the record, and then we were flipped, beaten by a small amount, and then we went back and we set a new record now, as you'll notice, of 7 minutes and 36 seconds. And to put that into perspective, the RS3 went around there in 7 minutes 33. But even though the RS3 is really a small performance car, 23 seconds slower, I think that says a lot about such a big car as an SUV. It's quite amazing to achieve that.
Like I mentioned, the most powerful combustion engine in our range. It's a V8 4-litre TFSI engine producing 471 kilowatts and 850 meters of torque. It has 0 to 100 of 3.6 seconds, mild hybrid technology as well, that we're familiar with. Electromechanical active roll stabilization, as Neil just explained. Ceramic brakes are standard, and customers are also able to choose the performance SUV tires for operating, which just enhance the grip on different surfaces. There's only one spec level available for the RS2 performance, 23-inch wheels, ceramic brakes available in blue calipers, also you can also choose red or grey if you like. HD matrix with laser lights, digital OLEDs, the RS Sports exhaust system, which really gives it that good brand, a head-up display, an additional layout on the Audi virtual cockpit, seat ventilation, and seat heating for both front and rear passengers as well. Priced extremely competitively at $3,266,100. Definitely a whole lot of bang for your buck this time. Alright, that brings us to the end. I'd like to invite Sasha, Seth, Richie, Ashley up in case of any questions, product related or otherwise, please feel free to ask.
Looking at the South African market and the range of vehicles that you have, what do you see as your best seller and why?
Currently we have a few models that do well. At this stage, if we had to pick a best seller, I'd say it's the Q3 SUV and the Q3 Sportback. As you have seen from the slide that I shared, about more than 60% of that segment is SUV biased. And currently our Q3 Sportback shows really good demand in the market. In fact, we can't get enough of them. Every time we get supply coming into the market, they get all set out to the dealers and they get sold. And the residual value on that Q3 Sportback is really strong. It contains over 90% of its value after the first year. So it's also performing really well on the used car market. So that ASUV segment for us is where we, I think, perform best. The other two volume cars, if you combine them, is the A0 segment where A1 and Q2 participates. But you guys are well aware that A1 and Q2, of course, it's discontinued from 2026 onwards globally. That was publicly announced a couple of years ago. So I'd say best selling car is the ASUV range for us. Best opportunity is the B SUV portfolio for us with Q5 and Q5 Sportback. And we see going into the coming years where we are going to get a new Q3 and Q5 that those two models combined are going to be the biggest percentage of our volume.
Another question.
Sure.
It's okay.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Competitors. You haven't mentioned the competitors there. And was my competitor. You're going to have surprise. But saying that and looking at the Chinese market, what do you see in the next 2, 3, 4 years will also be
response to you. But the simple answer is that whilst the Chinese brands have come into the market, there's no doubt that they're impacting the premium market. But they're impacting all premium brands, not just ourselves, of course. It's BMW, Merc, Land Rover, it's impacting the whole market. They're also impacting other more established brands like our sister brand, Volkswagen as well. So we don't, whilst we observe them in the price band, we don't really recognize them as a true competitor for any of our vehicles. I think our vehicles differ quite significantly, and even their vehicles at lower price points, they're offering a big C-segment SUV with a lower specification in it, but smaller engines, less powerful drivetrains. So we still maintaining our approach that from an image point of view and a brand point of view, Audi is regarded as a premium brand relative to the other premium competitors, and we compare ourselves more closely with those premium brands. So even when we measure our potential in the market, in the 35,000 car market, we'd much rather focus on that and try and optimize our volume and share opportunity. Not being naive about the fact that the Chinese brands are there, but that's why we've got Volkswagen as our sister brand, who helps us compete against those, and we've got to do a job with BMW, Land Rover, Porsche, Mercedes, etc.
I think maybe we can actually also interesting discussion about how many of the Chinese brands will now enter the market will still be around, let's say, 10 years from now. I have now a couple of doubts whether all of these brands are going to survive, or whether you're not going to see some sort of consolidation there as well. Just think of the other business pieces that are now suddenly become already a batch of TWR. You see already the first initial move there in my view. So I also think that the market like South Africa is simply not big enough in totality to serve so many brands and so many investments and so many dealers. And everyone wants to have a separate showroom, a separate workshop, and this separate, and that separate, and technology and parts and logistics and everything. I guess there will be a kind of consolidation pressure on the Chinese brands as well. Not today, not tomorrow, but probably if you look ahead, so 10 years, let's say, you might see some of them disappearing or merging somehow. That's the first observation, consideration. Second thing is the current market environment and the current consumer situation probably dictates in many cases that consumers buy more rational rather than emotional. And as they buy rational, they're probably going to tend to say, okay, that's a smart deal, it's not a bad car, it's not a bad product, it has all the bells and whistles, it comes with a 5-year plan, whatever it may be. So it's a smart move for now to buy down. And I might be coming from a premium brand, and I'm stepping out of a premium brand, and I buy a Cherry or a car, whatever it may be. But I don't think that many of those customers wholeheartedly really make a move to say, I would rather buy a Cherry, I would rather buy and drive a car over an Audi, over another premium brand. I don't think that. I think that people really, let's say, the car in many countries, and South Africa is not very different from that, I think. The cars are an important differentiator, a very important product to define who you are, and a self-portrait of your image for. So I think that people, once they have the money around the affordability, that they will come back into our segment and buy premium products rather than Chinese product. I still believe that. So for now, it might be a smart move and a smart choice for many, or necessary move maybe also for some. But I think if people are being given the opportunity and the possibility to buy a premium product that they could afford a premium product, they will make it. So it's also important to keep that in mind to figure out what might happen in terms of the entire brand portfolio in the South African market and how they are ranked and set up by consumers in their mind. A bit of time over lunch and
Morning. I just wanted to ask, right? I think it's, well, for me, it's what I think. It's a bit disingenuous for a lot of consumers to aggressively put the Chinese against premium for the premium brands to now capitalize on their smaller models, to kind of cash in that market. So something like a Q3, a not Q5, Q3, Q2, the sedan, the smaller ones, just so that you're in an aggressive price point against them. But in the same breath, it feels like you're folding or kind of like surrendering to them. But do you not think that just for that emerging market, that's where the money lies?
Yeah, I think that is definitely where the money lies. There's also a segment of the market that's, sorry, use this. It's also, well, I think my voice is it's also a segment of the market that's very highly competitive and very highly fragmented. So take a Q2 as an example. A Q2 sells in the same price band as a Cherry Tiggo 8 Pro. Right? So that's a big SUV, 7-seater, with all these options, etc. in it. And from a customer point of view, it's very difficult, I think, to have an A0 SUV, which is a much smaller crossover vehicle, against a big SUV for similar type of money. So it's not about folding and giving away the opportunity. I think now, with the introduction of the Chinese, it becomes even more important for a premium brand to behave as a premium brand. That we've got to be a little bit more unapologetic about who we are. The premium brands are about quality, like you said. The cars are for sure, from a quality point of view, let's say different. And when we bring a Q2, a D-spec Q2, to get price points correct in the market, and you're up against a Cherry Tiggo 8 Pro. When a customer, from our experience now in the past couple of years, when a customer comes in and sees that D-spec Q2, they're like, why would I even consider an Audi? Because it's meant to be a premium brand, it's meant to have all this other stuff in it to justify a higher price point for a smaller type of car. Yet, I've got a Chinese brand that now offers me everything for the same price. So it's a little bit counterintuitive for us to be able to lower the price point of D-spec cars to make them more competitive. It sounds good because it feels like the lower the price of the car, the more volume you can capture. But we've tested it with a few of our models and we find that it's actually harder to sell that D-spec car because you almost have to justify to the customer why they should buy a premium car with less options and less spec versus something else. So that's why we've adopted our product strategy, and you see a lot of black editions, and you see cars with a high level of standard equipment. That's actually working better for us because when it carries a premium badge and it does carry a premium price, it's easier to justify the price versus value proposition. So intuitively, you're not wrong because that is where the volume is. And what we are trying to do is through attractive finance offers, guaranteed buyback schemes, etc., trying to bring repayments down to a point where we can compete for some of that business in the segment. Yeah, we don't want to walk away, of course. We don't want to give up because that's not niche anyway. But I think we've also got to be realistic as to what we can and can't do based on what we can see happening in the market in Chinese brands. Is that sufficiently answer your question?
It's also about staying true to who you are. If you are a premium brand, I mean, we are really come back, let's say, from our office back for sure, way cheaper than we come back there. We wouldn't now start discounting and we come back just to sell more. And to reach that price point, so you also need to stick to your guns in a way. Say, well, we either premium or not. And so you can't have both typically, right? The biggest volumes, we must not be, trapped here with the Chinese to say, okay, they're going to put us down just because they're selling cars there. I think we need to find our way, like I said, try to explain a different way, which caters more for our clientele, for our consumers. And as I said before, I tend to think that a couple of years from now, 2 years, 3 years, probably starting this year, who knows, with some interest rate reductions, etc., that consumers will come back into our business. Because you must also not forget, many of these brands, they don't have a history in the country, they don't have an infrastructure, they have more G2 MG, parts availability, you don't know what the quality, the long-term quality of these products really is all about. We don't know what the warranty situation is all going to be about, etc., etc. So I think there's going to be a lot of discovery also for many of the consumers over the next couple of years and over the next couple of cycles. You also want to have an idea of what's the RV of a car after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, or whether you're going to sell it or more, or whether you will to do it. So I think there's a lot of a learning process in that as well. We will see how this changes the entire market structure. But I think many of the customers will come back again if they keep giving a chance.
But maybe just to complete that picture, building on your point, capturing that volume, what we do see as an opportunity is the used car market. So we're currently looking at our used car program because you can get good used premium badge cars at more affordable prices. So to complete that picture, the demo models that we would have to, we can be more maybe aggressive on putting into the market, guaranteed buybacks that come back to us after 3 or 4 years. Those cars generally come back at about 40 to 45% lower than the recommended retail price of listing. And those cars then coming back with 60,000 days on the clock, 80,000 days, and still having a maintenance plan in them, now compete quite well with some of these other Chinese brands there. So I think that's the opportunity, is to not only focus on the new car side, but also focus on the used car side. And that will allow us to capture some of that volume and share. You can't record that volume and share, but it ultimately feeds the car park of the brand, and in the longer term, you could potentially sell that customer a newer car. So the used car side is really important because our RVs are far more established. We've got a longer track record of them, so we know how it moves, life cycles, and over a period of time. And that's something we can work with. So that's another part that I think will get us more volume and share those price points.
I was just going to ask, we've got the exciting picture of the e-tron Advance as the introduction. And I want to ask you, is there quite a lot of scope from RV to bring more of the e-tron models across the range, Q6 and certain others? Is there quite a big vision to really pioneer, as you've done along the way, pioneer the electric space to bring more e-tron to the market?
Well, I think, let me answer this one. I think you're right. Yeah, we're still busy with preparing the next wave of modern up-to-date products like Q6. I mentioned that due for later this year, and that's going to be an SUV type car. I'm sure you're pretty well aware of that. With a decent range up to 650 kilometers, I think that also for everyday drivability will be further improved. With our investments in infrastructure in this country, we have more than 45 million rents and a lot of our partners really common cars. I think we also try to prepare a little bit for the overall setup. But it doesn't stop there. I mentioned the A6 e-tron in one picture as an avant type car, so another electric car. I would be glad to get a little bit of your input, your feeling, your observations, your experiences probably as well. Say would the market be able to absorb, accept such a product, such a body style first of all, because we also think more traditional cars like an S5 around with a traditional combustion engine technology, still to introduce only as an avant, not as a sedan. So we're toying with these ideas, but definitely we're going to go more and more electric as we evolve further. But I think also clear messages now from head office that the transition to electric will take long. I think we all learned that lesson. We all see what's happening around the world. But for now, still, it's going to transition to electric. And last year, I just figured out, I remember while we were driving here this morning. Last year, the total market EV cars, and total battery electric cars, so not plug-in hybrids or anything, in South Africa was 1,250 something cars. So maybe give or take a few couple of orders or whatever it is, number. Let's assume that's all for now premium brands. It's Volvo, it's BMW, it's Porsche, it's all. So it's 1,250 cars out of 30,000. You can do the math. That's 4.something%. Now you could say, well, it's still nothing. But you could also say, well, there was nothing before. Now it's 4% of the total premium market. Now you can extrapolate and say it's this year 5%, 7, 10. So I think once it reaches somewhere around maybe 10%, maybe it's becoming more accepted technology. And I would also hope that likewise, once we grow volumes globally, that also the technology becomes more affordable because of the cost side of things, to bring down prices to it. And then talking about product availability and offering that we also introduce cars in the lower end of the market, lower segments, with an even lower price point. I think sub 1 million would be quite an interesting price point for any EV car with an SUV type body shape in this country. It's going to sell. I think if you've got a value proposition and model design car with sub 1 million, let's call it 800,000, 900,000, sell. EV cars.